Hello, welcome. So, I'm making my first official video for my Patreon account, and my plan ultimately is to use a variety of platforms of media, be it short videos like this one and others, as well as documents and or referencing links, other different types of ways in which I want to share information with you and communicate my ideas or inspirations, whatever may come up. So I say all that because in this being my first video, I really have never made them before. I've a few times been in the front of a camera for somebody else's project. I've been interviewed for the news multiple. Bless you, Bodie. That was my kitty. See, moments like this, instead of starting over, what have you, we're going to have a kitty sneeze. So, anyhow, so just bear with me. That was kind of good timing on Bodie's part. I just bear with me. I'm going to try to integrate this sort of screen video capture technology so I can walk you through different things on my laptop, which makes it a lot easier than trying to do a PDF turned into a slideshow, turned into a movie or something like that. I could sort of click a button and show you a bunch of information, walk you through a bunch of different things, and then hit end and hopefully upload it, maybe with some slight editing. So without any further ado, my first set of projects really is about sort of catching everybody up as to kind of who I am, where I come from, my background, both personally and professionally, the things I've done, experienced, and the people I've met, the things I've sort of left behind, and the things I'm working on now. So that all being said, I want to make sure that I try to ramp everybody up to today in a very expedient manner. And in doing so, I'm going to try to start this first chapter with sort of my childhood, my family background, and sort of what brought me to Syracuse, New York, to start college, which was sort of chapter number 2 in my life. So I'm going to kind of whiz through this real quick. There's a lot to share. Not everybody's deeply interested in my personal life, but it all kind of comes together in the end. So it's interesting to kind of look back at where we come from and sort of all the threads that are related in our narrative, both through our family and our upbringing and sort of the decisions we make as young adults and adults to bring us to where we are today. So the reason why we have a photo here of this situation is because if we follow the matrilineal side of my family, my mother's side of the family, which I'll focus on, here, this is the patriarch of my mother's female matrilineal side. This is William Bradford, and these are the Pilgrims. That's the Mayflower, I would presume, and they are landing at Plymouth Rock. And this may be a representation of just in general the Aboriginal Native peoples that they encountered, or somebody in particular. I'm not so sure. But if you were to follow the story of this guy, you would get an author of the Mayflower Compact, I think the second governor of the Plymouth Colony, and the person that's often depicted as the sort of counterpart to Chief Massasoit in the Thanksgiving dinner. So my mother's father's side of the family, on the other hand, is French Native American. That's how I always heard it growing up. So I didn't quite know exactly what percent the Native American was. So one of my mother's sisters, one of my aunts, did genealogy work on her father, my grandfather, and found that his direct descendants were the Micmac or Mi'kmaq people from the Northeast. Their territory at their time was essentially northern New England, Nova Scotia. so on and so forth. And when I was doing an image search, I found this photo, and it's interesting because this young man here sort of has kind of the look of my grandfather. His name was Leo Leger, and he was a portrait artist and a professional chalk artist. And anyhow, it was kind of striking to see this young man's face because it had a similar look to my grandfather. Um, and just this is where they're from. I was actually looking at this on Google Earth. So this whole peninsula of Nova Scotia is where my mother's father's family's from. And then, of course, the Mayflower comes and lands at Plymouth Rock. And my mother lives here, Cape Ann, today. So when I go home to the east, I go to Gloucester, Rockport, this area up here. And this, when you say you're from Massachusetts, they usually think you're from this area. And of course, this is the famous Cape Cod. But I actually grew up here in Springfield, the second largest city in Massachusetts, in western Massachusetts, right on the Connecticut River. And I'm going to cut this video off at the appropriate time here, but this is actually where I was born. My mother and father lived in a one-room log cabin here in Granville, right on the Connecticut border, very rural, as you can see, just southern Berkshire Mountains. And she was 24, he was 19, 20, had me, and 3 years later, there was an unfortunate accident where my father and myself were in an automobile wreck on the mountain. There were no witnesses. Nobody knows exactly what happened. It seems to be only one vehicle involved, which was ours. And he passed away. And at 2.5, 3 years old, I barely survived the accident and moved on to, I guess, what would be the first chapter, second chapter transition of my life, which was my mother moving into the city of Springfield to help, family take care, get a job, and raise me. So I'll end it here, and we'll pick it up in Jake being a young kindergartner, I guess, in Springfield, Massachusetts.